I know you've said if you slip into depression or if you were advising somebody that does, that sweating is one of the things that you recommend. Just like get out there and do a thing. Now, the reason I think that works is because evolution had to incentivize you to go out and do hard things, to face danger, to take risks, to improve yourself. And so there are all these evolutionary pressures from a I am striving to be fulfilled standpoint to work hard. So my recipe for fulfillment looks like this. You must work hard to acquire a set of skills that you care about for whatever reason that allow you to serve yourself and the group. And if you don't do any of that, including just not working hard, you will have a profound sense of dis-ease. And so I look at modern life and I'm like, this is utterly fascinating. We have killed ourselves for God knows how many centuries to build a perfect walled garden where there are no predators. We don't have to worry about anything. And when you get there, because of evolution's manipulation of the human brain, it doesn't feel good. And so suddenly you have to put yourself back in a position where you have to do hard things, that you have to have a goal, you have to be striving for something, making progress. And if you're not doing that, you don't feel good.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So this is where I now then start asking, okay, technology, which you've touched on, what is it doing that's creating the downward spiral and or contributing to it if it isn't the sole thing? Because I think you've laid out three very important factors. But when I look at society, what it's doing and technology, pornography certainly comes to mind. If you had to rank order the technological problems, what rough order would you put them in? Is it pornography first? Is it wasting time on video games? What are the problems created by tech?
So first off, let me start with stuff that probably there's more alarm than actual harm. Video games have been shown. It would be logical if you see these multiplayer shooter games to think, okay, that's what's causing shootings, mass shootings. And all the research shows that that's in fact not the case. And for a lot of boys, it's a means of socialization. It's a means of relaxation for them. Obviously, there are limits to it. I notice that when my son's on screens too much, he just, for lack of a better word, turns into an asshole. And if he's used to being entertained all day long, when you don't entertain him or he doesn't get that action reaction, he'll do something to get a reaction regardless of whether that's good or bad behavior. That's just true of screens in general. What I think is most damaging is polarization. I think our discourse has become too coarse. If you look at America, relatively speaking, America, I would argue, has never been stronger. We're food independent, we're energy independent. China's neither of those things. You can maybe argue they're food independent, but China can't get into a war, an aggressive action, because there's so many choke points that could cut off their energy supply. We produce more energy than we consume. We produce more food than we consume. No one is lining up for Russian or Chinese vaccines. If you think about the most breakthrough technology creating the most shareholder value, it's AI. 98% of it was not only invented and captured in the United States, the majority of it is within a 7-mile radius of SFO International Airport. Our universities are the best in the world. When a conflict breaks out in the Middle East, we can send 2 carrier strike forces that can deliver the violence of a third of the 4th biggest nation in the world, which hopefully cauterizes it from becoming a national conflict or a regional conflict. Our inflation is the lowest in the G7, while our growth is amongst the highest. Our unemployment is at near record lows. Our markets are at record highs. I mean, there isn't a nation that wouldn't kill for our problems right now. And yet we don't like each other. And yet we see each other as our enemies. About 45% of Democrats are worried their kid is going to marry a Republican. People are talking to their neighbors less. The number of people who would vote for an autocrat as long as it was their autocrat is 25% in each party. A quarter of Americans would be fine with an autocrat who was elected.
Was that how the question was posed? Like, are you okay with an autocrat, or they described something that you read as an autocrat? I need to know how terrified to be.
Yeah, I don't know the market research semantics, but the wording, but it was something along the lines of, if it was a Democrat, would you be comfortable by this person getting elected at all means possible, even if it meant election interference? In other words,
oh God, see, that freaks me out.
I think a quarter of Democrats and Republicans would tolerate election interference as long as their guy or gal was the beneficiary of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing a lot of it, especially on the Republican side. But anyways, I'm biased here. We don't like each other. I think in addition, what you have is, I mean, you have teen depression and childhood depression, especially acute among girls, Instagram, lack of self-esteem. I mean, imagine you're younger than me, but you probably grew up imagine never being able to leave the high school cafeteria. I got to come home and relax, and I didn't, no one was evaluating me. Now these kids, if you don't get invited to a party,